Hey guys, I want to talk to you guys about the factory carburetor settings and how to tune your engine. Something that seems to be a very big topic on a lot of the RC chat rooms and on YouTube, but I'm not seeing a lot of the proper information. So I want to talk a little bit about it. First of all, you can actually go on to Traxxas.com and they actually have the information right there, which a lot of people aren't actually familiar with. I actually found this on Traxxas' website. It's the factory carburetor settings for the TRX 2.5, 2.5R, and 3.3. So I'm going to go over this with you guys really quickly. The TRX 2.5, TRX 2.5R, and TRX 3.3 racing engine factory break-in default carburetor settings. That means what they're set at the factory when you get it out of the box. The high-speed needle. The high-speed needle is this screw right here on the top of your carburetor. That screw on the Jato is right here. As you can see, I have the air filter off right now just so you can see easier. And on the Revo, it is right there. Okay, that's the high-speed screw. Okay, the high-speed screw says on all TRX 2.5, 2.5R, and the 3.3 racing engines, a good starting point for the high-speed needle is 4 turns out counterclockwise from close. So what that means is you want to take a screwdriver and you want to turn that screw to the right. Okay, and you want to turn it all the way in until it bottoms out. You don't want to over tighten that screw, you just want to tighten it down until it stops. Then you want to back it out 4 complete turns. Don't get mixed up with a screwdriver because you have a flat point and think that when you turn it back to flat again that's a full turn, because that's only a half a turn. You need to go 360 degrees, complete full turn. So you want to screw that all the way in until it bottoms out, and then screw it back out counterclockwise 4 complete turns. Okay, on the low speed screw, there seems to be a lot of topic about the low speed screw. I think it's kind of funny. Everybody's asking how many turns out from all the way in. Well, that's kind of funny because there is no correct amount of turns out. Let me read this to you. Low speed needle. Notice the thin darker gray area between the low speed needle and the throttle arm. This is actually the other end of the slide valve from the inside of the carburetor. The low speed needle is threaded into the slide valve and is set flush, even with the edge of the slide valve. Now what does that mean? Right here on the outside is the actual arm for the throttle. That's what your servo connects to. If you go over here to the top here, there's actually a Allen wrench. You could loosen that up and you could slide that arm off the carburetor. So all that leaves you with is the actual carburetor itself, the slide area. So if you look just inside that arm, you'll see that there's an outside edge where the screw goes in. You're supposed to make that screw even with that outside edge, just like that picture looks right there. Even. So on the Jato, my carburetor, there's my arm right there. Okay, and that arm would come off. Okay, so on the inside edge, let's see if I can get to it here. You can look in here. I don't know how well you can see in here, but it's supposed to be even in there, so you're going to just turn it out until it's even. So just use your eyes, screw it in, and then screw it out until it looks even. Okay, on this carburetor, it's actually on this side where the starter is, and it's inside right there. Okay, so it's supposed to be even to start with. Now, moving on to the next page, it says, note, this is a good base settings. Adjustments may need to be made to the low speed needle for best performance in running conditions. Idle stop screw. Now, right here is your idle stop screw. On the Carburetor, it's usually the opposite side. So let's look. Here's your throttle arm. Here's your high-speed screw. So you got high-speed screw, you got your throttle arm. And on the Jato, let's see, it's hard to see here. Where is it? That would be funny if I couldn't find. Oh, there it is. So just inside the hose, see if I can get a good look at it for you. Just under that hose, where the wire is, between the hose and the wire is the screw. You'll see it right there, between the hose and the wire. Let's see if I can get a little pocket screwdriver. I can point at it better for you guys. It's a little difficult to see, and my fingers are too big. They'll just get in the way. So, right here, in there, okay, there's a screw in there. That's your idle speed screw. Okay, on this carburetor, the 3.3, on my Revo, you have the high speed screw right here, and down here, right there, I'm touching it right now, that is my idle speed screw. Okay, so what it says is the idle stop screw controls the idle speed by preventing the carburetor slide from closing completely. Turn right clockwise to increase idle and left counterclockwise to decrease idle. Now let's say you want to kind of get a base setting, because maybe it's not idling, or you just took your carburetor apart, you've turned it a whole bunch, and you really don't know where you should be when you go to start it. It says the let's see. It says the carburetor is present at the let's see. A good starting point for the slide valve. A good starting point for the slide valve to stop at idle is 0.7 millimeter to 1 millimeter gap. So what does that mean? Inside the carburetor, where it opens and closes, if you put a feeler gauge in between the body and the carburetor, right here on the edge, let's see if I can show you on this carburetor. So right here, if you look at the carburetor, it opens. See it open? See if my camera, there you go, it opens. So you put a feeler gauge right here on the edge, and then you're going to get that gap to be about that. That's supposed to be the factory settings. For the idle is 0.7 millimeter to 1 millimeter gap. It says the carburetor is present at the factory for break-in. The base setting should be right to start and run the engine through the break-in process. However, if you are having trouble getting the engine started or keeping it running, then you may need to readjust the fuel mixture to compensate for factors such as temperature, humidity, and altitude, air density. It is a good idea to bring the tuning card that was attached to your fuel tank with you. And it has these tuning cards where you can actually click on them to make the image bigger on their website. I don't know if I have on this page the actual link where I found this or not. It doesn't look like I do. So I apologize for that, but I don't have the link. You guys will have to just search for it. You might even do a Google search, factory carburetor settings, and that's the heading. Okay, anyway, so I want to talk a little bit about this, because a lot of people say, well, now that I got it running, I want to know, how should I adjust it? What's the proper adjustment? And there's a lot of guys out there that'll tell you there is no correct adjustment. The reason is, I use Traxxas Top Fuel 20%. That's what they use from the factory. If you change to O'Donnell or any of these other brands, and you've tuned it to Traxxas 20%, and then you change fuels, your car may not run right. Everybody uses different additives in their gas, and you have to tune your car to the fuel you're using. So if you're using the Traxxas 20% fuel, in most cases you're going to be running a little rich when you go to break it in. That's good. It's supposed to run rich. A general rule of thumb is to take your high-speed screw and turn it in 1/8 of a turn to 1/4 of a turn. Usually that's enough to lean it out enough to make it run really nice, really fast. an eighth of a turn to a quarter of a turn. A lot of times you don't even have to mess with your low speed adjustment. But if you really want to get into fine tuning, some of the things you should know. 1, you want to adjust your high speed screw first before you even start messing with your low speed. Okay, so you want to turn this in an eighth of a turn and you want to do a full speed pass. And if you're not getting any hesitation or any bog, go another eighth of a turn. When you actually start to get a little hesitation or a bog, or almost feels like it wants to stall out, you're too lean. You need to back it back out an eighth of a turn. If once you've backed it out an eighth of a turn, now it seems to be running perfect, I'd back it out another eighth of a turn just to make it run just a little bit rich. That's usually the best case scenario. Then you won't burn up your engine. Now that you're done fine tuning, I will tell you with this engine, I backed it out for 4 turns and I think I turned it an eighth of a turn, and that was pretty much all I needed. It ran great. Okay. Secondly, this bottom screw down here, okay, the low speed screw. They have what's called a pinch test that you can do for checking. Some people want to know what's the big deal about adjusting this screw. Let's talk about that a little bit. 1, if you go to nail your gas and you get a little bit of a hesitation or a bog, that's all in your low speed screw. You can actually get the car to ride wheelies and pull really hard out of the hole if this adjustment is made correctly. But again, you can't make this adjustment until you're done adjusting your high speed screw. So if you're getting a bog or a hesitation, I always recommend the first thing you do is go rich. It's always better to go a little rich than go a little lean. So back it out an eighth of a turn and see if it gets worse. If it gets worse, then your problem was you were running rich, and now you want to turn it back in the eighth of a turn that you were at, plus another eighth of a turn lean, and go a little lean until you're actually able to nail the gas and you get a nice crisp response. Now, they have what's called the pinch test. If you're concerned that you went an eighth of a turn and you're really good and crisp, but now you go another eighth of a turn and you really don't notice anything, and you're like, I wonder if it's better here, or if it was better where it was rich, or what, or if I should even go leaner, you can do what's called the pinch test. This is where fuel is going into your engine. Some people have a little crimp tool here that they squeeze, and that's how they shut their cars off. Some people squeeze it with their fingers. What you want to do is crimp it or squeeze it with your fingers, count 1 1,000, 2 1,000, and by the time you get to 3 1,000, your engine should stall or shut off. If it's still running for a long period of time, you're running too rich. That means that there's too much fuel still in your engine that allows it to stay running. If you pitch this and you go 1 1,000 and it instantly shuts off, you're running too lean. Okay? So it's called a pinch test. If you pinch it right away and it just shuts off right away, you're definitely running too lean, and you want to back that screw out some. If you hold this and you pinch it and you go to like 5 1,000 and it just finally shuts off, you're probably running too rich. Okay? 1 1,000, 2 1,000, by the time you get to 3, it generally should shut off. Okay? So that's a good rule of thumb. One other thing I want to talk about is on these bodies, when you get them from the factory, see my window is not cut out. You look back here, I have a big cutout for the heat to dispense, and I actually have a hole in the back of the window. Well, you're supposed to cut a hole in the front of the window, and I'm going to explain to you why. When you're doing high-speed runs, think about a car. Your radiator's in the front of the engine. Air runs through the radiator, helps cool the coolant and whatnot, and helps keep your engine cool. Same idea on these engines. It's very similar to a Volkswagen engine. You have an engine, you have no water cooling. You need air to get to it to cool it. So you want to cut a hole, and I'll show you on this Jato. You'll see that there's a hole in the front. Air can run through. It comes out the back of the body. It hits the engine here and cools it off. So a lot of times when you get them from the factory, they won't be cut out. You actually want to do a little cutout so you can look at where it sits, where the motor's sitting, and just cut yourself a little square right here in the front to allow air to flow through to hit the motor. If you don't have this cut out and you're doing a lot of high-speed passes, and then every once in a while you notice your car's stalling out, it's probably because of the high-speed passes. You're overheating your engine, even with it running at the proper adjustments, and it's causing it to have some stalling issues. So, also one other thing that's really important to know. You may go through, especially when you first buy your car, the glow plugs because it's running so rich, because everything's fresh and new in there. You may get some metal particles and things like that. It could actually foul spark the glow plug. So be aware that if it was running really, really good, it was idling good, you did a couple tanks of gas, and all of a sudden it starts stalling, it's not running right, take your glow plug out, put a new one in, and then continue on. Also note, if your car's been running good for quite a while and all of a sudden it starts bogging out, hesitating or whatever, before you condemn your fuel, before you start messing with your adjustments, change your glow plug. 9 times out of 10, it's just a glow plug that's fouled out. And if you are running rich on your engine, you will cause the glow plug to foul out after a period of time. So even though it's good to run your engines a little rich, it can also be hard on your glow plug. So just be aware to always carry an extra glow plug with you. And have fun. Hope this helped you guys out. And good luck.